Good afternoon. Welcome to Fort Ligonier. Now what you're about to see is a demonstration that includes elements of the October 12th, 1758 battle that occurred right here at Fort Ligonier. Fort Ligonier was built in 1758 as part of the Forbes campaign, led by General John Forbes, who was a British officer. And this was during a war called the French and Indian War. Now, the French and Indian War was fought between England and France and their associated American Indian allies in North America. And this was a war for empire. They were fighting over land and trade. And fighting really started over a very specific piece of land that provided access to both those things. Today we call it Pittsburgh. Forks of the Ohio was a coveted location for both England and France, because if you controlled the forks of the Ohio River, you could control trade and land for thousands of miles. But this wasn't just a war in North America. The French and Indian War was actually part of a global conflict known as the 7 Years' War, which is considered to be the first world war because nearly every major power was involved, and there was fighting in North America, the Caribbean, Europe, Africa, India, and as far away as the Philippines. So the goal of the Forbes campaign was to take the French stronghold at Fort Duquesne, which was at present-day Pittsburgh. So Forbes and his army had been working all year to build and fortify a road between Philadelphia and Fort Duquesne. And the last fort before going after Fort Duquesne was Fort Ligonier. In September of 1758, the British embarked from Fort Ligonier to try and attack Fort Duquesne, but it was a failed attack, and about a third of the troops that were sent out there were casualties of that attack. The French knew that the British would try again. That was why they were here. On October 12th of 1758, the French arrived, they came over the hill behind you, and they set off to attack the troops here at Fort Ligonier. Now the battle actually started behind you in the field where some of you may be parked, across what's now Route 30, where the Loyalhanna Creek used to flow. Those fields were natural meadows, which is one of the reasons this was picked for the site of the fort. And the soldiers that were first attacked were called grass guards, and they were guarding the livestock grazing in those meadows. There were a few dozen of them, and they were the first to be attacked. There were around 1,500 men who were working nearly around the clock in shifts to build the fort when it was attacked. They were under the guidance of Colonel James Byrd of the Pennsylvania Provincial Regiment. And when he heard the grass guards being attacked, he sent out 200 reinforcements to confront what he thought at that point might just be a small raid. But that raid turned out to be around 440 French Marines and about 150 of their American Indian allies. That first wave of reinforcements were pushed back, so about 500 more were sent out. And our French commander is moving them quickly to confront the British and try to push them back further. Now you'll see our French troops in formation. They're firing down the line.
They were trying to get to Fort Ligonier, which is where the French were at. That's why the French came to attack that. That's why. And the French were blue, and the flag was white with a white cross, because they didn't have right on the cross to make it stand out and see the cross.
Now, in addition to the meadows, the natural meadows across the Loyal Hannah Creek, this site was chosen for the fort for other reasons. It is up on a hill. It has natural defenses along the side, the high cliffs that run just behind you. And it also had a fresh spring for water. And with the amount of artillery they were bringing here, this was an ideal spot for Fort Ligonier. The fort is designed with rings of defense. The first ring of defense would be redoubts, which are like little mini forts that would run around the perimeter of the fort. Then we have the outer retrenchment, the wall that surrounds you. The very intimidating phrasing sticking out of it. And then we have the inner fort. And the inner fort was to protect the supplies. You can have the best trained army in the world, but if you cannot feed or clothe them, they may not be any good to you at all. At its peak, there were over 5,000 people associated with the British Army here at Fort Ligonier in 1758. Even though it was a temporary population, it was the second largest population in Pennsylvania at the time. It's Philadelphia. And this truly was the middle of nowhere in 1758. To bring everyone and everything you needed to sustain those 5,000 people. You hear the drums from the British side. The French also have a drummer. They were very crucial members of the army, the musicians, because they told the soldiers what to do. Now you see them lined up in formation. The tactics of the time were really based on the weapons they were using. You just heard a volley where you have many muskets at once fired all together. They're firing smoothbore muskets, which at times can be a bit inaccurate, but if you fire a whole bunch of them at the same time, very close together, you're more likely to hit your target. Rifling technology existed during this time, but smoothbore muskets could be reloaded and fired more rapidly, and a good soldier could fire his musket around 3 to 5 times a minute. The white flag might look like a flag of surrender, but that is the French flag of the time. Now the British troops that were here in 1758 included the 77th Regiment of Highlanders, who were Scottish soldiers, the 60th Royal American Regiment, many of whom were enlisted from the colonies. The Royal Artillery was here, as were provincial units. Provincial meaning they were from the colonies, and the provincials that were here were from Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, Delaware, and the Carolinas. So the British have advanced on the French. Okay, and the British are affixing their bayonets, preparing for a bayonet charge, a very intimidating scene in which they're going to attempt to drive the French from the fort. And that artillery you just heard is what ultimately won the day on October 12th of 1758, because the British had artillery and the French did not. Let's give our reenactors a round of applause. General Forbes went on later that November to successfully take Fort Duquesne, which he renamed Pittsburgh. Let's give them another round of applause. These reenactors are dedicated historians who volunteer their time to be here. They come from all over the United States and Canada to be here at Fort Ligonier to share their love of history with you. And we thank you for joining us today.